This is a story that was updated by the Associated Press 26 minutes ago. Now, if you don't know who Brendan Dassey is, I know many people out there watch the documentary on Netflix, Making a Murderer. It was a story about a murder, a terrible murder, rape and murder of Teresa Hallback back in 2007 in Manawha County, Wisconsin. And it's a brutal story, and I think what's forgotten in all this, every time we talk about it, is the poor Hallback family and Teresa herself. It's a tragic, tragic, and brutal murder. The man that was convicted is named Stephen Avery, and his nephew got wrapped up in this. Brendan Dassey was a high school student at the time who, if you believe what the documentary showed you, seems to be a very sad figure in this. He was a high school student with an IQ that really made you think he was
taken advantage of.
Totally taken advantage of. He had no idea what was going on. He basically,
with the interrogation anyway.
In the interrogation, he was interrogated for a long, long time. And eventually, in his mind, he said, well, if I say yes to this, I can go home and watch WrestleMania.
Exactly.
So in his mind, if he was like, okay, it looked like you could see him working his way through this intellectually going, if I confess to this murder, can I get home in time to see WrestleMania? And so he confesses, and they're like, I don't get to go home? Like, you just confessed to a murder, man. And every time you see him after that, you could tell he has no idea what's going on. He doesn't know what the lawyers are talking about, what the judge is talking about. What was it? He didn't know that
he doesn't comprehend it. And you still don't really know is, was he involved in it or not? I mean,
it seems highly unlikely with the facts presented in the documentary.
Well, I'm not sure if it seems highly unlikely. What I think was definite about the thing is that he was wrongfully interrogated, and there was a coerced confession involved. What the thing is, you don't know is you can't trust a word out of a kid's mouth. You don't know what the truth is and what isn't whenever he opens his mouth, because he has 10 different stories of what's going on.
He admitted the interrogation, and whenever he talks to a lawyer or judge, he treats it like school, where he just guesses until they say, you got it right, which is how he was going through school as like a 16 or 17-year-old. Anyway, his case has been overturned. It came out earlier this week that he was going to be freed. And now, as of in the last 35 minutes, a federal appeals court in Wisconsin has ruled that Brendan Dassey must remain behind bars, even though his conviction's been overturned. A judge on Wednesday ordered Dassey released from prison by 8 p.m. Friday night. The state Justice Department asked the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in an emergency motion to block the release, and the 3-judge panel on the appeals court Thursday agreed to block Dassey's release pending the resolution of the appeal. Who knows how long that's going to take? I mean, look, I don't think the kid had anything to do with it, because, and what it comes down to, and I really struggle with whether or not Stephen Avery had anything to do with it, because of the physical evidence in the bedroom where the alleged rape and murder took place, and there was no physical evidence, none,
nothing.
And there's supposedly blood everywhere in their account of what happened, except they couldn't find any.
Yeah, there was none in the room.
Not a drop, not a shred of DNA, which seems impossible for it to have gone down the way they claimed it went down. But I'm also cognizant of the filmmakers. We are totally at the mercy of what the filmmaker's storyline is, and so you got to be a little bit careful with these things. But the one thing for sure was that Dassey's intellect played a role in his conviction and his lack of intellect. I hope that this kid gets released.
Well, I kind of do too. I mean, my opinion after watching the documentary was that I thought that he was innocent, or at least certainly couldn't prove that he was guilty, because I don't know what the evidence was pointing to. I still have some doubts as to whether or not he had anything to do with the murder, because I don't know, because you can't trust him for being truthful, because he was always lying. But this is, it's an old story that came about into national prominence because the documentary was released about a year ago from Netflix. And if you haven't seen the documentary, it's so incredibly compelling. If you want to talk about binge watching, You and I both binge watched The Walking Dead to get caught up to speed because we didn't watch the show up until about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And we got caught up in a hurry.
This one,
it was. I could not wait to watch the next. I mean, I binge watched it. I think in 2 days. Just couldn't get enough of it.
Well, yeah.
It's not long. It was only like 8 or 9 episodes, but still, fantastic television. And then they're having a second season of it at some point because the story just keeps going on.
We got a tweet here from AJ who tweets us, Dassey guessing at details of the crime and being wrong made me cringe so much. Look, I'm hoping that justice prevails here, and I think the justice is that this kid should be released. And so for people who watch Making a Murder, if you didn't, it's compelling and creepy and scary on so many levels.
Well, it presents, it's everybody that's part of this case, you form an opinion on. You form an opinion on Stephen Avery. You form an opinion on Brendan Dassey. You form an opinion on how you think that his defense did for him, and how Dassey's original defense attorney did for him.
Screwed him over.
Totally screwed him over. The conflict of interest that existed in that case was unbelievable. The police and how corrupt that they were in the whole life of Stephen Avery. Because he spent all of his adult lifehood basically in jail, part for a crime he never committed but was framed for, and then this one he thinks he's framed for.
He's happened to this guy certainly once, but maybe twice. Who are the two lawyers, by the way?
I don't know what their names are. I forget what their names are.
Because they came across as stars.
They did, and then he's got a new attorney, some woman who is famous for representing and getting cases overturned based on DNA evidence. And she's been pretty outspoken about the defense that they provided for Stephen Avery, and not in favor of their defense. She didn't think they did a good job. But it's I can't wait for this thing to come to a resolution. But you're left thinking it's just such a corrupt system in that county in Wisconsin, and then it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, basically.
Dean Strang and Jerry Buting. Now, it's interesting because this was a documentary. The best documentaries, God, there's so many good ones. One of my all-time favorites was on TV last night, Hoop Dreams. And I was like, I'm just going to watch for a couple of minutes. And then hour and 15 minutes later, I'm like, okay.
Did you see that in the theater when it came out? Or
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I did too. I was blown away how great it was.
Well, a guy that I became friends with was in it. He was a college coach, small college coach, and he was recruiting Arthur Agee to this small college in the Chicago area, and he eventually became an assistant in Michigan. I thought
you were going to say Juwan Howard because he was in there.
Juwan was in it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll keep you up to speed with the Brendan Dassey case because at this point he's going to be forced to stay in jail. 248-539-9797. We got open lines. Ticket text 97136. All right, Gator. We got some resolutions. We had a deer case earlier. We had someone who came up with a great resolution for disputed deer in the woods. We'll get to that today in 5 minutes. 97.1 The Ticket.
Hey, everybody. I've got a little breaking